How often do you start the quarter with a solid goal, and before you know it, it's 90 days later, you're still chasing the same outcomes, and you haven't made any progress? If that sounds familiar, then there's a system I'd like to teach that helps me, and it's proven to be a useful tool for my clients that I coach as well. See, each quarter, I like to work the chefs I coach through a structured reset using OKRs and KPIs, and I'll get to that in a second, to turn what could be chaos into clarity. I do it for myself also. OKRs and KPIs aren't meant to be buzzwords, they're not meant to be fancy, they're proven tools, like I said, that I use to help executive chefs, myself included, focus on what needs to get done, making sure it's also the biggest impact item instead of working on frivolous things. In this video, I'm going to show you how I do that, but I need to do a few other things first. Outline the ingredients that make up the process, then I'll walk you through the process step by step to write effective OKRs, things that actually get done, and then show you how to turn those into goals and into daily action and a weekly rhythm. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about how to avoid the biggest mistakes that cause even the greatest plans to fail. If you want to follow along and build your own OKRs as we go, you can download the exact template that I use by clicking the link in the description below the video, or comment OKRs in the comments. So let's get into it. By now, you're asking, what is an OKR? More literally, OKR is short for objectives and key results. It's a style of thinking for strategic goal setting. And there's a framework that I use to create clear, alignable, measurable progress. And that's for any organization or any team. Especially useful in high performance, high professional environments like our kitchens. Now first, the objective. A clear, qualitative goal that answers the question, what do I want to accomplish? It should be ambitious but grounded, time-bound, usually set quarterly, but at least annually, inspiring and action-oriented. Think of this as the North Star that sets direction and that gets supported by the key results, the KRs. This is 3 to 5 measurable outcomes that answer, how will I know that I'm making progress towards my objective? Each key result should be quantifiable using numbers, deadlines, and deliverables. It should also be challenging yet achievable and outcome focused, not task oriented. Key result in summary is how you'll make progress towards that goal. In an example from our world, a useful objective may be to elevate the quality and consistency of plated dishes across all of the outlets this quarter, or for the up and coming season, which is usually a quarter in length, 90 days. And some key results might look like reducing guest complaints related to plating errors by 50% within 45 days, or developing and implementing new plating guides for 90% of the menu in all of the outlets, possibly conducting 3 plating training sessions for all station leads and sous chefs in the next 30 days. See, OKR thinking is not at all a to-do list, it's a discipline of intentional leadership that organizes steps to achieving a goal. It forces focus, prevents drift, and aligns team members around what matters the most because you set it that way. You stop measuring effort as in, we're busy, we're working on stuff, and start measuring progress as in, we're moving in this direction. We are going to resolve this problem. So now, what is a KPI? KPI is short for Key Performance Indicator that monitors performance, and it's going to alert you to changes that are either going to help or hinder your progress towards that objective. So as an example, if your OKR is to elevate guest satisfaction, a KPI like average guest survey score shows whether things are trending in the right direction, assuming that you have a survey to work with. That may be also an objective that you need is to implement a survey like that so that again, you can lead deeper in and create that result that you're aiming for. KPIs give you the context to set realistic yet ambitious key results. You can't set strong OKRs unless you know where you're starting, aka have a baseline, you know what's possible based on benchmarking, and you know where the pain points are or the gaps exist in your system. As a coach, I'm often consulted to help find those gaps in between the baselines and the benchmarks. KPIs are the tools that support the OKRs because the OKRs are actually the targets. And the idea is to adjust the KPIs, aka the systems, processes, and behaviors, so that you can hit the OKRs through the effort of your team. So let's look at one of those key results from our example, like implement and audit new plating guides for 90% of menu items in our outlets. A KPI for that might look like developing a plating accuracy score. Having a definition, a clear target, and a frequency rounds that out into something that's usable. Or even having a presentation score in your guest surveys, right? Have it as an optional KPI if you have the data. That needs to be defined, have a target, and also have a frequency, how often you check that in order for it to be useful. KPIs like this give live insights into how the implementation is going, and they show you very quickly if you're off track on a key result. Basically, the KPIs help you diagnose where to intervene sooner than later. Try to think of KPIs as a weekly rhythm to support quarterly OKRs. OKRs should be for quarterly sprints or annual targets. KPIs let you check progress along the way. Weekly, monthly, they create a measurable cadence that keeps teams engaged and accountable. Together, your KPIs act like the gauges and instruments, feeding you the information that you need to make smart, timely decisions that ensure that your OKRs become a reality. And they keep you from guessing and waiting until you get to the end of the period of time to see if it works. Some useful KPIs for executive chefs include having a weekly food cost. We're all used to monthly, but that's a key performance indicator of whether we're doing our job according to our management's requirements of us. Having a labor cost percent, or even having some other KPIs like guest complaints per 100 covers, call outs per week, training hours logged per cook. Great KPIs that keep your team moving in the right direction and focused on the right problem areas. Next, we need to get into the process for bringing OKRs into actionable pieces. So let's walk into that process a little bit. The first thing to do is a brain dump. And I think of this as a raw inventory phase. The idea is to get everything out of your head, all of your stressors, projects, pain points, opportunities, loose ends, needs, wants, everything out of your head onto a piece of paper. Here's how I like to do that. Set a timer for 15 to 45 minutes. Write down everything that feels unresolved, important or in motion. No filter, just word vomit on paper. If you can't find a flow, I have some prompts that I look to that help me, so let me share those with you. If you're working through this as we go, then just pause after I ask the question and then pick right back up after it, if you need more time. Anyway, otherwise continue on. So the first question is, what do you want done? The next question, what's broken? Another question for prompt is, what's not moving fast enough? What's the real pressure point? What's working? What's not working? What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? And that should give a messy but complete snapshot of all that's going on in your head. Step 2 in this process is to group and sort those items. I like to call this the pattern recognition phase. This should take, roughly 5 or so minutes, right? And the goal here is to order the chaos. Begin clustering those items into related categories. Group them together and eliminate like items and unnecessary stuff. I look for 5 to 8 clear categories of focus. The next step is to check alignment with the bigger picture. You generally have bigger objectives. Maybe it's a 5-year plan, maybe it's a 1-year plan, but it's important to ensure that the quarter's goals move you closer to the greater vision and not just have short-term fixes for short-term fires. The bigger vision can be yours. It may be external from ownership, leadership, from a board. Again, just check for alignment. Next, prioritize the outcomes of what you've listed. And this is where you kind of have to decide what stays and what goes. Distill and choose from the grouped themes and pick 1 to 4 high-value objectives for the quarter. You got to rank each group in order of impact, urgency, and leverage if you're having a hard time deciding. So then select the top 1 to 4 for the quarter. And remember, you're not working on this forever. You can start next quarter's objectives as well. Step 5, identify 3 to 5 key results that's going to lead to each one of those objectives. So you have your objectives. Now you're going to have 3 to 5 key results for each of them. The purpose of this is to define success clearly and objectively. What does done or better actually mean, and how do these key results help you get there? Right? So for each objective, ask, how do I know when I've completed this? What are the things that are going to be done to get me to completing this? Key results have to be time-bound. They need a deadline. They need to have a clearly defined deliverable, and they're going to push progress, just don't require perfection. Because again, it's about making moves, not about getting it all right. A strong set of OKRs, in my mind, means 1 to 3 clear objectives, each with 3 to 5 measurable key results. It's a great place to start. Now, we have a document that's useful, but at the same time still doesn't have any action to it, right? Here's how we move those OKRs into actionable tasks. Step 6, translate each of those key results into an outcome. Break each key result down and ask, what would need to exist, change, or be built for this to happen? This helps you define the deliverables or changes required, not just activity, but a deliverable, purposeful outcome. If we go back to our example of having a plating accuracy score, you're going to need to have some materials developed that help you there. Plating definitions defined, clear plating diagrams. You're going to need to have a measurement system in place, and you're going to have to train somebody on what that needs to look like in the end, right? Those are clear changes that need to be built or need to be put into place in order to make sure that this is going to happen. From there, we identify core projects or work streams that need to come from this, right? So we have a clear goal of what needs to happen, but now we need to get that into a workable project. If that key result is to improve plating accuracy, and to improve plating accuracy by 90%, then each one of those individual little pieces is going to become its own individual project. And the next step is to take those projects and break them into individual tasks. Very often, this is where it kind of gets a little confusing and things tend to get a little overwhelming. The big difference between a project and a task is that a project contains many, many small tasks. It's really hard to complete something when it's not properly broken into subtasks because we get hung up on all of the little steps along the way. So I like to use a whiteboard or a project tool like Trello is a pretty good one. Monday is also a pretty good piece of software to break projects into bite-sized actions that I can pencil out so that I can also create a clear owner for it, create a deadline, and make it small enough to complete in a single or possibly 2 work sessions, maybe alone or in small teams. So that bigger picture project of trying to build out an SOP for plating may have a small subtask of draft first version of plating SOP for cold appetizer section in 2 weeks. Small task that leads to a much bigger picture. Smaller bites that people can chew on. Spend time on who needs to do what, and that way you can delegate and assign appropriately. The next step, step 9, is to layer in the rhythm and review period. To avoid drift or pile up, use regular check-ins. Weekly is great. That keeps projects moving really very fast. Monthly reviews are okay as well if you're busier. And ask the questions if you've made enough progress to meet the deadline at the end of the quarter. You may need more time, but again, it's about progress, not perfection. And then at the end of the quarter, score each key result and extract the lessons and review incomplete pieces and just add them to the next cycle if it's something that's important, or again, decide that it's not important and move on. So a small little note here, make sure you're filtering tasks so that you're staying strategic. Before adding a task, make sure you test it. Does this move towards a key result? Is it essential or just urgent? Can this be delegated? And can you define clear success of whether that's done or not? They tend to turn into overwhelming lists of things that never get really done. And so that brings us to kind of this final part. There's a few things that can go wrong after writing even the best of OKRs. And the most important one is that they don't get used. They don't get reviewed. They don't get checked. They're not in an accessible place, right? So the biggest way to overcome that is to keep them in a place where you can see them regularly. Check on them at least once a week and find support in being accountable. OKRs shouldn't take more than a couple of days to write. Say 3 at most. And I would even say it's best if you can do it in a day, because if you spend too much time thinking about it, it's really going to set you back. So a day for the OKRs and a day for turning them into actionable items, use them. And then every time you use them and every time you do the process, you get better at it. Let's bring it full circle, right? When you start the quarter with a solid goal and you find yourself at the end of it not finished and still chasing a same outcome without making progress, it's probably not your effort that's lacking. It's probably your system, or more specifically, a lack of a system for creating an effective objective. As a chef, leader, you already know that passion for food is only part of the equation. having a process of developing OKRs and KPIs allows you to transform undefined ambition into clear, objective, and measurable progress. This process isn't just a list of tasks, it's your leadership GPS. It gives you the ingredients to focus on what matter most, and to me that's clarity, alignment, and rhythm of completing what I set out to complete. Now these tools empower you to stop merely reacting and begin leading with intention. You're not just managing a kitchen, you're building a resilient, high-performing team that can execute a vision, even when you're not physically there. As an executive chef, your role is more than just about the food, it's about setting a clear vision and driving consistent results through intentional leadership. With this system, you get to transform every quarter from chaotic to clearly structured. You gain the tools to define what success looks like, measure progress against meaningful benchmarks, and adjust your course in real time so that your team always knows what's expected and that they're working in the right direction. When you lead with a system, you create an environment where innovation and consistency go hand in hand. You become the guiding force that elevates every dish and every team member systematically, ensuring that your kitchen continues to run smoothly and evolve appropriately. So now it's your turn. Get started and download the Chef Leadership OKR and KPI Planner using the link in the description below to start building a system that works to support your effort in goal setting. Use this planner to reset your priorities every quarter so that your vision turns into action and your kitchen moves forward with confidence and clarity. And if you're ready to take this structured approach further, comment schedule below in the comments or click the schedule link to learn more about my program for executive chefs. Remember, great leadership isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the most useful thing with the resources that you have. Thanks for watching. And if you want to dig deeper into the systems that keep executive chefs effective, check out my latest video here. I'll see you there.